So picking up with the biographies still, we're redoing last week's because bad audio. Number 6, Bailey J. Irani, in parentheses, Bailey. On the roll of the disciples of the Master, the name of Mr. Bailey Jamshed Irani stands and will continue to stand high. It was with this Bailey that the Master, when a boy, dared to go to the Parsi Tower of Silence on one occasion at dead of night. Bailey was born on the day of the vernal equinox in the same year in which the Master was born. Unlike the Master, he was unfortunately born with several bad habits, which were strengthened on account of the bad company he kept during his school life and for a few years after it. He who has now become Mayor Baba was the only good and noble friend of Bailey during his boyhood. Though himself on the whole a bad boy, Bailey loved the noble mayor. Indeed, on occasions, he simply could not do without Mayor. And so whenever their son gave them a lot of trouble, his parents would request Mayor to give him good advice and to blame him for his misbehavior. Mayor was not given to giving advice, but in the case of Bailey, he would go out of his way to do so and used to do his utmost to improve his conduct. As he was aware of Bailey's affection for him, he would oft warn the naughty boy thus: "If you won't behave properly, I shan't speak with you." Unfortunately, Bailey was influenced more by his bad friends than by his only good friend. He studied only till the 4th form and then bade goodbye to school education. Soon after that, he became addicted to the nasty habits of drinking and gambling, which afterwards brought disgrace upon him and his family. When the Great War broke out in 1914, Bailey resolved to serve the British government. He was appointed to the post of storekeeper on a British hospital ship. And in this capacity, he got the opportunity of seeing various parts of the world. His experience of the world increased, and with it, unfortunately, also increased the force of bad habits. In 1917, at his own request, Bailey was transferred on land duty to Aden. In Aden, from the beginning, he led a gay life. He tumbled headlong into the booby trap of the temptations of the world. Pleasures are shallow, but the troubles that follow the pleasures are deep. His love for sensual pleasures hurried him into an error of which full advantage was taken by his enemies. He was accused of disgraceful conduct, was court-martialed, and sentenced to 2 years imprisonment, which was afterwards decreased by 6 months. When in 1920, Bailey returned in an anguish of remorse to his native city, Pune, he found himself an object of contempt. It seemed to him that the entire Parsi community of Pune had entered into a conspiracy to boycott him, his own mother, and all those who were near and dear to him did not like to speak with him. He made great efforts to search for employment, but they ended in smoke. A sense of total helplessness took entire possession of him. The whole horizon loomed before him, totally black. He was driven to throw all bright hopes overboard into the black ocean of misfortunes. While there is hope, there is life. And when one's hopes are extinguished, thoughts of suicide invade one's mind. Bailey got so much disgusted with the world and with his life that one day in the morning, he resolved to commit suicide on that very night. In the afternoon, when he was on the point of leaving his home with the firm resolve never to return to it, his elder brother entered his room and said to him, to his boundless surprise, "Merwan wishes to see you and has asked me to take you to his toddy shop." My readers must have guessed at the fact that this Merwan was none other than Meher Baba. Though not fully conscious, he had not forgotten his old friend Bailey. Neither had Bailey forgotten him. But thinking that, like others, he too had become faithless to him, he had not cared to seek for help from him. Bailey had resolved to do away with his life, and so, though his old friend sent for him, he did not like to accede to his request. Needless to say that he was totally unconscious of the fact that his friend had become God realized. He merely said to his elder brother, "All right, I shall go afterwards." But his brother was not thus to be put off, and he was bound to carry out the wish of Merwan. He said to Bailey, "No, no, you must come with me. Merwan has taken a promise from me, which I could break only on pain of his severe displeasure, that I should take you to him." With reluctance, he was compelled to go with his brother to see his old friend. As soon as Merwan saw Bailey approaching his shop, he ran to him, and without caring for what the passers-by would think of him, warmly embraced him and stamped his forehead with a number of kisses. He then took him to his shop, where he requested Bailey to give him the promise of seeing him on the following day without fail. The reason why the master made this request was that by his powers he had divined that his friend had resolved to commit suicide. Ever since he had returned to his native city, Bailey had been treated not only with indifference, but also with rudeness and contempt by almost everybody with whom he had come into contact. Consequently, the love that his old friend showed to him made him so much joyous that he forgot all his troubles, and with the troubles the decision to commit suicide. There was at least one person in the world who loved him, and so hope entered his breast. On the following day, the two friends again met each other and talked heartily. Merwan extricated Bailey from all his difficulties, and Bailey became so grateful to him that, though he was unaware of the spiritual perfection of his friend, he thought it his duty to carry out all his wishes. Merwan, before he became fully conscious, succeeded in weaning Bailey from all his bad habits and in making his mind incline to communion divine. Think of the surprise and delight of Bailey when he came to know at the end of 1921 that his old friend Meher was a spiritual giant. He surrendered himself at the feet of Merwan, and his devotion to the master has been knowing no bounds. When the master was in the hut, none excepting Bailey was allowed to remain in or come into it at night after the clock struck 9. Bailey's duty at that time was to keep watch when the master laid down for rest. Ernie, could you unmute and continue reading, please?
Nine, Sadashiv Patel. Moreover, it was in this toddy shop that one of his present disciples was drawn to him, Mr. Sadashiv Patel, who is a Maratha by caste and who is nearly 35 years of age. Mr. Patel somehow got the inkling of the high spiritual position of Meher Baba, and so often called upon him. 10. Arjun Supakar. I must now pass on to the late Mr. Arjun Dagdu Supakar, who was with the master throughout the whole period of his stay in the Manzil, and who was on intimate terms with Mr. Vishnu. Mr. Arjun, who was by caste a boy Kshatriya, was born in 1895 in the city of Pune. He learned for a few years in the municipal school of his native city, and then served for a few years in the tobacco shop of Mr. Agarwala. In 1914, he himself opened a tobacco shop in the Kasbah Path. He came into contact with Meher Baba soon after Mr. Baramji F. Arani became the licensee in partnership with the master of the Kasbah Path toddy shop. When Mr. Arjun first saw the master, he was stirred to the depths, and as time glided by, he was more and more drawn to him. Baba occasionally used to go to Mr. Arjun's shop, and there used to partake of a little tobacco and used to clean his teeth with it. As early as 1919, Mr. Arjun somewhat got an inkling of the spiritual perfection of Baba, and therefore not only did he attend the worship ceremony, but also worship the master regularly. For 6 months, he himself served in the master's shop, And when Baba became a conscious perfect master, he took pride in calling himself his disciple. When the master left Pune for Bombay in May 1922, Mr. Arjun readily accompanied him, leaving his tobacco shop in the charge of his brother, who is still conducting it. 14. Baramji Fardunji Arani. Scarcely a month elapsed after Meher Baba regained a little of his lost consciousness, approximately December 1914, when one day his friend, Mr. Kodadad Rustam Arani, who had brought with him a gentleman, called upon him. Mr. Kodadad, who is a disciple of Meher Baba, introduced a gentleman who bears the name of Baramji Fardunji Arani to him. As Baramji's connection with Meher Baba has been very close since the day on which he was introduced to him, and as he is the superintendent of the Meher Ashram, I think it proper to introduce him in a few words to my readers. Baramji, who is the son of Zoroastrian parents, was born in Persia about 37 years ago without silver spoon in his mouth and with serious defects in his eyes. On account of his defective eyes, he passed his childhood and the great part of his boyhood in great misery. He had to remain confined in a dark room of his house, as his eyes could not bear the light of day. He could not take any part in the pranks and plays of boys. He could not be put to school, nor could any education be imparted to him in the house. It seemed as if he was destined to drag out his life like a man accursed. But when the boy was 15 years old, as good luck would have it, his worthy maternal uncle, Khan Sahib, then plain Mr. Asfandiar, Rustamji Irani, was on a flying visit to his native country. He did not forget to meet his sister, the mother of Baramji. To her house he repaired one day, and she seized the opportunity of pouring out the tale of the misery of the boy into his sympathetic ears. The Khan Sahib took compassion on the boy, and with the consent of his sister, brought him to Pune. So Baramji, when 15 years old, found himself in Pune under the care and protection of his kind uncle. The Khan Sahib, at the first opportunity, put the boy under the treatment of an expert oculist, and within a few months, his eyes became free from defects. When Mr. Kodadad introduced Baramji at the end of 1914 to Meher Baba, he performed perhaps one of the best deeds of his life. Baramji was from the first taken up with Meher Baba. As soon as Baba came to know that Baramji was illiterate, he offered to teach him Persian as a friend, free of charge. He was then 22 years old, but was burning with the eagerness to study his mother tongue. So he snapped at the handsome offer with great delight. For 4 months, Baramji had the good fortune to learn Persian from Meher Baba. 15. Babu Garu Ubali, Babu Cyclawala, another disciple who stayed with the master in the manzil, and whom I should not forget to mention, was Mr. Babu Garu Ubali. He is known among his fellow disciples as Babu Cyclewala, inasmuch as he conducts a bicycle shop in the Sashapur street of Pune. He was born about 29 years ago, around 1900, and is a Kshatriya Tali by caste. He took little secular education, but has had a deal of spiritual education, for which he is indebted to Meher Baba. 16. Ahmed Abbas Kak. The third Mohammedan disciple whom I have to write about is a fairly good poet and the joint author of the life of Sri Upasni Maharaj. He bears the name of Sak Ahmed Abbas, but is known among the followers of the master as Kak Sahib, as he writes poems under the pseudonym of Kak, which is a Persian word meaning dust. He was born about 35 years ago in the city of Pune. From his early boyhood, he has been spiritually minded and is firmly imbued with the conviction that someday or other, with the grace of his spiritual master, Sri Meher Baba, he will get spiritual enlightenment and the salvation of his soul will be accomplished. He came into contact with the master soon after Babajan made him God realized, but began to believe in him after he became a conscious perfect master. 17. Adi K. Arani. An equally stout disciple of the master is Mr. Rustam's younger brother, Adi. Mr. Adi was born in 1904 and matriculated from the Panchgani High School at the early age of 17. He has had an artistic turn of mind, being very fond of music. When he first saw the master, a singular feeling of awe descended on him, and his heart was moved to its depths. In his eagerness to serve Baba, he was, when in the Manzil, second to none. Adi, when asked in 1970 how he came to Baba, gave the following answer. I first came in contact with Baba in 1921 when I saw him at Sakori. It was during the last days of his separation from Upasni Maharaj, and my mother, Golmai, was also there. Baba was said to be the best disciple of Maharaj, but we did not know that Baba was a perfect master. Neither did we have the least idea that Baba was the avatar of the age, and that in future he would come out and declare himself to be the avatar. Later, Upasni Maharaj was called by my mother to be present at the housewarming ceremony of the new three-storied house that my father had built in Ahmednagar. But all the Parsis of Ahmednagar and my uncle also were much against us. We were a joint family. My uncles and my father's families lived together. In spite of this opposition, my mother invited Upasni Maharaj, and he came. At that time, Baba also came to our house. I had gone home during my vacation from school, and I saw Baba there. The second time that I had seen him, I fell ill at that time, and Baba kept coming to my bed. He showed such a deep concern and love for me that I was so much taken by him that I compared all of our small loves for mother or father or relatives or friends. And eventually I felt that Baba, who lavishes so much love, is really something by far so great, there cannot be anything greater than his love. Then one day I happened to go to my old house. Baba was there, and he made me sit before him. He just asked me, whether I would ever be with him. I was a pretty young boy, 18 years old, and I did not know what to answer. But he said, "Do you know who I am?" I said, "I know that you are the chief disciple of Yapasni Maharaj. More than that, I do not know." So Baba said, "I shall not tell you who I am today, but you will definitely come to know, and you will see that your name is made known all over the world." I do not remember exactly the words he used, but he made me feel that his work was really universal, that he wanted me to be near him, and that wherever he would be known, I also and that wherever he would be known, I also would be known. I was deeply impressed, but I was more deeply impressed by his love, his most unselfish love. Then, hearing all about this, my mother came forward and just offered me to Baba, saying, "This, my son, belongs to you, and he will obey you. He can live with you. I have not got the least objection. And as of today, he does not belong to me. He belongs to you." Baba was very happy, and I too was very happy. And soon after, I was in contact with him. Then Baba went to Pune and stayed in a small hut on Ferguson College Road, and I went to Deccan College. There, Baba asked me to present every evening, whether I had studies or any other work, to be present every evening, whether I had studies or any other work to do. So I had to give up all the sports. And every evening after college, I was asked to go to that hut and stay with him. In late evening, I went back to the college, a distance of about 3.5 miles. Then Baba undertook a foot journey from Pune to Bombay, a distance of about 115 miles. There were about 45 lovers of Baba, and I was amongst them. After the long journey on foot, we reached Bombay and stayed in a suburb with Baba in a house called Manzil Imam. 18. Ardashir in Hansosha, Slamson. I must now press on to a Parsi disciple who bears the name of Ardashir Nusserwanji, Hansosha, and the nickname of Slamson. Mr. Slamson is nearly 30 years old, and like his elder brother, Gustaji, from his early boyhood has been spiritually inclined. When with his elder brother, he used to go to Sai Baba and Sri Yapasni Maharaj in order to worship them. For the last 8 years, he has been serving Meher Baba, whom he takes pride in calling his spiritual master. Most of his sanskaras have already been wiped out, and he has attained freedom from the network of vulgar desires. 20. Sarosh K. Arani. Mr. Sarosh Kaikushru Arani, the cousin of Messrs. Rustam and Adi, also stayed with the master in the Manzil. He was taken by his cousin, Mr. Adi, to Meher Baba in March 1922. Mr. Sarosh was so much taken with the personality of the master that he wanted no other indication or proof of Meher Baba being a perfect master. 25. Rustam Baram Jafrabadi Aga Badal. One of the most faithful disciples of Meher Baba is Mr. Rustam Baram Jafrabadi, who is known among the master's followers as Aga Badal, the nickname given to him by the master himself. Mr. Aga Badal was born about 35 years ago in Jafrabad, Yezd, Persia. His parents were poor, but very religious minded, and they trained the boy in the way in which he should go in his afterlife. When he was 8 years old, he was sent to the metropolis of the Bombay presidency. In Bombay, he was put to the charitable school for Iranis, which was situated near Chowpatty, and in which he learned Gujarati and Persian for a couple of years. When only 10 years of age, circumstances forced him to earn his own living, and this he did by serving in a restaurant. When 17 years old, he returned to his native land, where he became a farmer. In his 22nd year, he married an Irani girl of the native village who bore the name of Sultan Jamshid. Sometime after his marriage, the people of Jafrabad made him the leader of the village. In his 25th year, he found himself to be, on the whole, a prosperous and respected man. But he had not much peace of mind, for some external force was impelling him to leave his native country and go once more to Bombay. He resolved to obey the mysterious call, and much to the surprise of his relatives and friends, one day set out for Bombay. Soon after his arrival in Bombay, he opened a restaurant in the Karas building, Horel, as it did not bring him a good income, and as he was tired of Bombay, he went to Pune in 1921, where also he opened a restaurant in partnership with an Irani gentleman. But materialistic pursuits were quite unwholesome to the constitution of his mind, and so he yearned for life spiritual. His shop was occasionally honored with the visit of Babajan, who he took delight in serving out tea. In the beginning of 1922, he came to know Mayor Baba through Mr. Baramji Effarani, with whom he formed friendship soon after his settlement in Pune. He became eager to see the perfect master, but something or other prevented him from calling upon him till the 21st of May of the same year. That is, just one day prior to the day on which the master, with his party, left Pune for Bombay. On the 20th of May, Baramji called Aga Badal at his shop, and in the course of their conversation, informed his friend that Sri Meher Baba intended to leave Pune from Bombay within a couple of days. Aga Badal became anxious to see Baba before he left Pune. And on the following day, Baramji took him to the master. The master was not present when, when they approached, but several of his disciples were there, including Adi Kairani. Taking Adi to be Sri Meher Baba, Aga Badal, much to the amusement of all those present, worshipped him. When he was informed about the mistake he had committed, he could not help joining in the general amusement. When the master came, Aga Badal was introduced to him by Baramji. Soon after he worshipped Baba, the master asked him, "What do you want?" "I want to be your disciple and am anxious to stay with you," was the reply. The master, to show to those present the stuff of which his visitor was made, tempted him with the offer of a large sum of money and told him that he would be very rich if he invested it with wisdom. But Aga Badal was not a bit tempted. His yearning for life spiritual was strong indeed, and he told the master that no amount of money could change his purpose. The master then told him that if he stayed with him, he would have to undergo many hardships, and that he lived in a fool's paradise if he thought that his life would thenceforth be a bed of roses. Thereupon, Mr. Badul observed, "With you, I shall undergo any sort of hardship. I shall rather suffer in life spiritual than be happy in life material." The master then accepted him as his disciple, and a very worthy disciple he has proved to be. Since then, his thoughts have never been taken up with the anxieties and excitements of worldly life.
Thanks a lot, Ernie. Thank you. Betty, could you unmute and continue?
26. Rustam K. Irani. I have now to introduce to my readers a worthy disciple of the Master, who, though showered by fortune with many a good gift, cares not a straw for riches, and whose nature recoils with horror from the thought of leading a materialistic life. His name is Mr. Rustam Kaikhosru Irani, the elder son of Khan Sahib Kaikhosru Sarosh Irani, the renowned merchant prince of the Ahmednagar district. Mr. Rustam was born on the 4th day of the 7th month of the year 1898. At an early age, he matriculated from the Barda New High School of Bombay and joined St. Xavier's College, where he passed the examination following the first year's course. He then joined Sydenham College, but he passed through it with a single examination without learning much. Though surfeited with what are called the good things of life, from his early boyhood, he has been spiritually minded. Towards the end of 1921, Sri Upasni Maharaj with Meher Baba honored the bungalow of the Khan Sahib, who had made an invitation to the perfect master by visiting it. It was here that Rustam saw for the first time Meher Baba. Sri Upasni Maharaj spoke so highly of Baba that Rustam was much impressed. He had at first the intention of becoming a disciple of Sri Upasni Maharaj, but Meher Baba, on account of Rustam's connection with him in past lives, persuaded him to follow himself. Since then, Rustam has been a staunch disciple of the Master. 27. Gulmai Irani. Gulmai was an emblem of silent suffering. She was of a very quiet temperament. She had a delicate, fair body, but a stout heart. She was born in Bombay, and her father was a carpenter. She had one sister and one brother. She could not easily mix with people, having led the best part of her married life almost by herself and with her children, whom she could not give what she wanted. She had to depend on other members of the joint family for food, clothes, and all other necessities of life for a number of years. This, coupled with her nature of not depending upon others and her deep affection for her husband and children, could not make her live happily. Deep inroads of suffering were created on her finer metal, and thus there was a growing dissatisfaction with life and surroundings. Nothing that she wished for nobly and helpfully for her children could she do, as she was always heard to say, without stretching her hand to a family member for a coin or a word of sympathy, despite the fact that her husband was the main source of initiative and energy for the roaring business which was built up by him out of almost nothing to begin with. My father, Adi, Gulmai's son, is the author, was known for his loud thinking and vigorous activity, which enabled him to make a good name and earn money in Ahmednagar. But he sadly lacked in giving attention to his wife and children, which he ever wanted to do but could not. Gulmai suffered at his hands indirectly, and everything that seemed to others to go well came to a break. I am certain that God's ways are unknown, and the ways of perfect masters are unfathomable. Upasni Maharaj gave a break to her worldly suffering by diverting her care and attention from her home to Sakori, and Meher Baba later restored her to her home and family with a broader vision, a greater love, and a stronger mind. During this period of transition, she became so deeply and intimately devoted to Meher Baba that she was always prepared at Meher Baba's word, not only for any sacrifices of herself and her possessions, but also of her children and their possessions. Her love for Meher Baba became the mainstay of her life, which became the source of inspiration to all the members of the joint family to gradually and surely follow her footsteps. Once drawn to Meher Baba, a person becomes so much sheltered under the ever open wings of his love that all persons or circumstances by which he is drawn become insignificant in spite of the fact that their memory remains ever fresh. All Gulmai's trouble at home cannot be attributed to my father or to the other joint family members. It was partly due to her aloofness from all family activity, in which she found herself misplaced. She did not take enough part, which she was supposed to do, and so felt herself neglected by others. But this did not rob from her self-confidence and peaceful nature, which she always had, and which attracted family members. For her quiet advice and strength during grave personal crisis. Frail in body, she looked like a rock in storm and impressed the family members with her inner strength and understanding on personal matters. She had less of worldly knowledge, but had a deeper sensitivity and appreciation of human suffering that would sometimes get her into hot water with others. Her single-minded devotion to Meher Baba was exemplary. This was no less in no less measure due to Meher Baba giving her exuberance of his love and affection as a mother. The name Gulbai was turned into Gulmai by Meher Baba. This is by Adike Irani, My Life with Meher Baba. Divyavani, March 1967, pages 21 to 23. 28. Call me J. Bajifdar. I must write a word about Mr. Homi Jehangir Bajifdar, the well-known all-around cricketer who stayed with the master in the Manzil. Mr. Homi was born in 1893 in Bombay and studied in the Fort and Proprietary High School. As soon as he heard of Meher Baba, he, being spiritually inclined and not hankering after wealth, one day in June 1922 called upon him to worship him, and the master accepted him as his disciple and asked him to stay in the Manzil. 29. Navroji Kalati Naval. Thousands are the disciples and followers of my beloved master. It is not quite possible to mention all of them, but I must not forget to acquaint my readers with Mr. Navroji Kursetji Kalati, who stayed with the master during the whole period of nearly 11 months in the Manzil. Mr. Navroji was born in 1893 in Surat, but was educated in Bombay at the Fort and Preparatory High School. Being spiritually inclined, he would always like to see and talk with saints. One day in 1914, soon after he left the said school, he called upon Sri Upasni Maharaj. At that very first meeting, he was so much drawn to that great perfect master of Sakori that he resolved there and then to visit him now and then. Needless to say, he remained true to his resolution. Indeed, he could not resist the temptation of going to Sakori with a view to worship Maharaj. Whenever he found himself free from work, there occasionally he saw Meher Baba, whom he in his ignorance used to call the mad Irani. Little did he dream then that the time would come when he could have to acknowledge the mad Irani as his spiritual master. However, as early as the beginning of 1921, he brought himself to believe that the Irani would surely be the recipient of the grace of Sri Upasni Maharaj. When Meher Baba became known as a perfect master, Mr. Navroji became anxious to serve him. At the end of May 1922, he met the master at Mr. Ramjoo's place and willingly carried out the master's command to stay with him in the manzil. He took an active part in whitewashing the manzil and in partitioning its hall. Do I go on, or do you want to switch?
Yes, please, go ahead.
30. Jal S. Irani. I have now to introduce a disciple who since his birth has been with Baba. He is Mr. Jal Shariar Irani, a younger brother of the master. Mr. Jal was born in 1902 in the city of Pune. He learned till the 6th form in the St. Vincent's High School. From his early boyhood, he has been religious-minded and a believer in saints. Sometime after he left school, he called upon Siddharth Swami of Hubli, who is a God-realized person and has thousands of devotees. He did not know about the high spiritual position of his elder brother till Baba informed him about it in the beginning of 1922. That is, soon after he became a conscious perfect master. At first, Mr. Jal simply could not believe what his brother said of himself. And when Baba said that he had extraordinary powers with which he could perform miracles, the younger brother boasted that he too had such powers. The master thereupon asked him whether he had the power to bear pain of the fire. The reply was in the affirmative, and so the master ordered 2 fireballs to be put on Mr. Jal's right hand, one on its palm and the other a little above the wrist. Though terrible indeed was the agony that the fireballs caused him, and though his skin was burning fast, Mr. Jal stoically bore the pain and neither screamed nor groaned. When after the expiration of 5 minutes, the master ordered the fireballs to be removed from his hand, it was with great difficulty that the order was carried out, as his skin was stuck fast to the fireballs. It may be said that Baba practiced horrible cruelty upon his brother, and indeed to all appearances the order was cruel to a degree, but in reality it was kind to a degree. The master's object in putting the fireballs on the hand of his brother was not to punish him for his idle boast, but to make him learn to suffer terrible agony, to raise him above the feelings of pain, and to wipe out some of his bad sanskaras. Mr. Jal was almost miraculously cured of his hurts, and since then has been faithfully serving the master. 32. Faradun and Driver. Padri, another Irani youth who served the master in the manzil and who is still serving him, was Mr. Faradun Navroji, who bears the name of Padri, given to him by Meher Baba. Mr. Padri was born in 1903 in the city of Pune and was educated in the Pune Camp Government English School. After leaving the school, he worked for a few months as an apprentice in a motorcycle workshop. In the beginning of 1922, his mother, who is a devotee of Hazrat Babajan, was informed by an enemy of her son that he was leading the life of a debauchee. The information was at once groundless and malicious, but she believed it simply because her son did not like to obey her, and she considered disobedience to be the mother of all vices. Out of evil cometh good. The result was that the mother of Padri asked him to see Meher Baba. Padri resolutely refused to carry out her wish, but she insisted upon his visiting the perfect master, till he was forced to do so one day in February 1922. When he saw the master, he was so much impressed that he said to himself in spirit, though not in words, "In him is life, and that life is the light of men." Therefore, he settled upon Baba every day and accompanied him in his journey on foot from Pune to Bombay.
Thank you, Betty. We'll pick up here next time. Page 398, that was.
Okay. Well, thanks, y'all.